and I will be your host this evening. We're going to have a very short but very nice program. Before we start, let's ask our dear Consul General, the Honorable Marciano Painor Jr., to give his remarks.
Thank you very much, Joaquin. Honored guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of the Philippine Consulate General and on behalf of our main guest tonight, I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening to allow us to meet our main representative from the Philippines. This gathering of Filipino leaders is indeed a very heartwarming occasion. We would have wanted to invite the whole community, but this being a Thursday, and now it's no longer TGIF. It's thanks God it's Thursday. So we met into some traffic coming here, and as I understand, some of our guests also are encountering some traffic. But before we proceed, I have the honor to acknowledge our elected officials who are here and who have honored us with their presence. The President of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, President David Chu. The Honorable Rob Bonta, Vice Mayor of Alameda. The Council Member of Colma, Joan Del Rosario. Mr. Ray Benaventura, Daly City Council Member. And commissioners from the various different areas. Denise Normandy is here. Roberto Bernardo from San Mateo. Commissioner Alice Bulus, of course, and other friends and elected officials who may have come after. Oh, Madam Patrick Coscos. The weight and importance of our historic relations with the United States only leads to common knowledge that the Philippines' top representative to the U.S. federal government must and should be a person of distinguished professional and personal qualities, with great accomplishments and a high level of competence to be able to carry out the delicate mission of enhancing the relations of our two countries while promoting the interests of the Philippines and its people. This statement alone introduces our respected guest this evening, whose biodata is actually full of accomplishments and which we have distributed for you to read. It is my honor and privilege to present to you the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Philippines to the United States of America, His Excellency Jose Cuisia.
Thank you very much, Consul General Marciano Painor Jr. for that very warm and generous introduction. Distinguished government officials, members of the American, Filipino-American, and Filipino communities, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. First of all, let me thank all of you for coming here this evening. I'm truly overwhelmed. I did not expect such a big group. And some of you have traveled long distances just to come and to meet me, and I truly appreciate your gesture. You know, San Francisco is my favorite city. Yeah. come here very often because I have 3 sisters. In fact, 2 of them are here tonight. My sister Frances Dalton and my sister Socorro O'Connor, together with my brother-in-law Dave O'Connor, who are here tonight. A third sister used to live here also, Chona, who moved to Chicago because she had her job in Chicago. So I used to come here, but when my daughters moved from Manila to New York, then of course I had to come less often because they demanded my time with them, you know. And they would always complain that I was going more to San Francisco than to New York. But they know very well I like New York. I worked in New York for almost about 1.5 years. In about 2 years, I was studying at in Philadelphia, but I've always said that San Francisco has been my favorite city. And my regular job, this job, I will probably be coming to San Francisco even more regularly. So, as this is my first official visit to the Bay Area as Philippine ambassador to the U.S., I will cherish this time when I personally met and touched base with the leaders and members of our community, our beloved kababayans in Northern California, who have organized themselves into an active community dedicated to advancing the interests of the Philippines in this part of the United States. I'm pleased to hear of the notable achievements of our community here, encompassing almost all fields of discipline and endeavor: finance and business, information technology, performing arts and music, education and journalism, sports and athletics, and in public service. Indeed, the Filipino Americans in Northern California have been united and strongly committed to the cause of our community. I'm happy to inform you that I've had very fruitful meetings today in Silicon Valley, where I met with some key business executives to discuss the priorities of the Aquino administration, which are anchored on the 2 goals of poverty alleviation and employment generation. These meetings are part of the President's program of enhancing economic diplomacy as a tool to create jobs, ensure our country's global competitiveness and economic efficiency, and establish a macroeconomic and political environment conducive to growth, business, trade, and development. As you may be aware, H.R. 3039, or Save Our Industries Act, was introduced in June 25, 2009 by Congressman Jim McDermott and Congressman Brian Bilbray to help revitalize the United States textile and Philippine apparel industries. Estimates from industry groups such as the American Apparel and Footwear Association and the Confederation of Garment Exporters of the Philippines, or CONGEP, indicate that the legislation will support jobs not only in the Philippine apparel sector, but in the U.S. textile sector as well. U.S. fabric exports to the Philippines are currently small, about $11 million in 2010, and very little of that being apparel fabrics. SAVE Act would provide strong incentives for Philippine apparel manufacturers to use U.S. fabrics. SAVE Act has the potential to create demand in the Philippines for hundreds of millions of additional U.S. fabric exports, which could in turn sustain thousands of U.S. jobs over the length of the program. A reasonable forecast suggests that during the duration of SAVE Act, demand in the Philippines for U.S. fabrics could grow to some $500 million, supporting about 2,000 additional direct jobs in the U.S. textile mill sector, which currently provides about 60,000 jobs. Built on our 2 countries' long-standing technical, economic ties and friendly relations, the SAVE Act will represent the first significant Philippine-U.S. bilateral trade enhancement and cooperative initiative in decades. It is a win-win legislation worthy of the support of the Filipino-American community, wishing to come to the aid of both its native and adopted countries. As the Philippine government, through our foreign service post in the United States and the Philippine-American community, will work together on the important bill, I hope you will support it and help ensure its enactment. Allow me to acknowledge our friends from the Filipino community and the U.S. industry who have been with us in last year's campaign and have signified continuing support until we achieve the passage of SAVE Act. NetSuite Inc., a Silicon Valley company that gave a 2010 Special Grant Award to help the Philippine government through the Philippine Trade and Investment Center to communicate clearly with millions of Filipino Americans on trade issues that can benefit both our countries. The grant, worth about $270,000 of software and tremendous volunteer time from NetSuite's Filipino knowledge workers in Manila and Toronto, provides us with the technology backbone for our website, saveourindustries.org. That's one word. And social media network like Facebook, Twitter, and discussion blogs. Let us acknowledge NetSuite Inc. executives and IT professionals here tonight, led by James Downtown. I don't know whether it's Downtown or not. And David Gilhoff. Please give them a big hand. Volunteers from the youth group brought renewed vigor to bring the grassroots campaign to more specific and reachable targets towards the end of 2010. While HB 3039 and SB 3170 did not pass last year, their effort gained us enough traction to be able to restart our campaign in 2011, knowing that we have more supporters in the U.S. Congress. We expect the bill to be refiled soon by Senator Daniel Inouye and hopefully another Republican co-sponsor. So please give a hand to our young friends, Al Perez, Genevieve Jopanda, Levin C., Russell Bong Vergara, John Juan, and Grace Esteban. Thank you to all our youth volunteers. I invite all of you to visit the SAVE Act website at saveourindustries.org, which has been retrofitted to serve as an online portal for the SAVE Act campaign. It acts as a US-wide bulletin board on campaign activities being conducted at the local Filam community level, and as a web place where visitors can instantaneously post emails to seek support for the SAVE Act from respective U.S. legislators. We urge our communities to utilize the SAVE Act website and its Facebook and Twitter interfaces, for in doing so, we can dramatically extend our reach to as many of our Filam kababayans as possible. Another major bill we're working on is the renewal of the GSP, or the Generalized System of Preferences, which benefits about 129 countries, including the Philippines. We export about $1 billion worth under this GSP. Unfortunately, it expired in December 2010 and was not renewed, but we are confident that this will be renewed. In my meetings in Congress the past 3 weeks, I have gotten positive assurances from congressmen, senators that this bill will be renewed. The Philippine government has recognized overseas Filipinos as a vital component in our national life. We certainly appreciate your sacrifices, your support for our national development, and your contributions to our economy. We likewise convey our immense pride in your achievements and recognition as important movers in the American mainstream. Proof of your significant presence and contributions to American society is shown in the success you've achieved as professionals, as recognized leaders in your respective communities, and as holders of responsible positions in both the government and private sectors. I have been informed that there are now 35 elected Filipino Americans to various positions of importance, including Chief Justice Tani Cantil Sakayuye, the first Asian American and youngest jurist to hold the highest position in any state judiciary in the United States. Mayor Michael Gingona of Daly City, Mayor Jose Esteves of Milpitas, Mayor Mirna de Vera of Hercules City, former Mayor and current Council Member Joan del Rosario, Coloma City, and Board Member Hydra Mendoza of San Francisco Unified School District, among others. Here in San Francisco and the Bay Area, you have certainly made a name for yourselves and are a credit to our community, to our country. In so doing, you have contributed to the enhancement of our image in this part of the United States. I am pleased to note that despite your success, despite your long years of stay in America, you have remained intimately linked with the homeland and proud of our Filipino culture and heritage. I can certainly associate with your pride of being a Filipino and possessing unique qualities that sets us apart from others. The feeling of pride in our collective qualities as a people beats in the hearts of each one of us. Everywhere we go, in the diaspora, including America, we have kept our values of hard work, perseverance, and of course determination to succeed. We have maintained our culture, our language, customs, and traditions. We have kept the faith in our hearts. That you continue to show interest, passion, and enthusiasm in contributing your share for a more peaceful and progressive Philippines is a testament to your important role as our true partners for national growth and development. In the first State of the Nation address, our President, President Benigno Aquino III, asked our people not merely to give him advice, which is certainly welcome, but more than that, to get involved, to do what each one can do to the best of each one's ability. I therefore invite you to invest in the Philippines and to give something back to your homeland. As you know, 7 years ago, the Philippine Congress enacted into law Republic Act Number 9225, otherwise known as the Citizenship Retention and Reacquisition Act of 2003, that allowed former natural-born Filipino citizens who lost their Philippine citizenship due to naturalization to reacquire their Filipino citizenship. Under the law, and as provided by the 1987 Philippine Constitution, former natural-born Filipinos who reacquired their Filipino citizenship under RA 9225 are entitled to purchase land and other properties and engage in business in the country. I encourage you to take advantage of this law and avail of its benefits. As dual citizens and as Filipino Americans, you are in the best position to contribute to the development of our country. By purchasing properties in the Philippines, by visiting the country's tourists, by making the Philippines as your retirement home, and by continuing to send your remittances, you're helping to create jobs, combat poverty, support business, and channel much-needed resources back to the local economy. Let me tell you that we are organizing an ambassador's tour, ambassadors and conjents or consul general's tour on July 17 to 20. And so far we have almost 250 that have signed up from different parts of the United States. And we encourage you to come, especially the young people that we hope that they get to know their roots, that they get to know the Philippines better. And so we would encourage you to contact the Consul General nearest you. I suppose here, San Francisco would be nearest you. And we would, of course, want to welcome you back to the Philippines. I think the other program that we are, of course, encouraging Filipino Americans to look at is the public-private partnership that the Aquino administration is promoting for investments, because we need investments in infrastructure, tourism, excuse me, particularly in areas like power or energy, water, and so on. And as Filipino Americans, you would of course qualify to make investments in this program. In the end, I believe that the key to our success is joint responsibility between the government and the citizenry. Government alone cannot do the job without the full support of its citizens. I've always maintained that full participation in nation building is expected of all our citizens, including overseas Filipinos. We must remember that we belong to a society that is not an aggregate of individuals or families, but a single community in which you and I are all of us, and all of us are part of the greater Filipino nation. Before I end, let me just make one appeal to all of you, particularly the Filipino Americans who are qualified to vote since you are US citizens. Because if you want the Filipino American bloc to be a potent force, I would appeal to you to register and to vote in the elections, because the congressmen and senators are of course monitoring also how the Filipino American community votes. If we want to influence any bills in Congress, they must know that you are exercising your right to vote. My understanding is that not too many of our Filipino Americans who are qualified to vote actually vote. This is probably something we have to change. And sure, it might mean a little inconvenience, a little sacrifice, but I think it's important for us, especially since we want the Filipino Americans to be heard. And you can do that if you actually register, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, but exercise your right to vote. This way, we can get the Filipino Americans to form a more influential bloc. And that is one of my appeals to you. So again, on behalf of our government, I want to thank all of you for your support. I know you've made notable contributions to the Philippines in many ways, and of course, to your adopted country in the US. And we look forward to continuing working with you on many of these, particularly I mentioned the SAVE Act, which we need your support, and of course, the support also for the renewal of our GSP, the GSP bill, which benefits the Philippines. And again, thank you very much to all of you for your presence this evening, and I look forward to getting to know you even more in the years ahead. Marami pong salamat.
Well, San Francisco Philippine Trade Investment Center in Silicon Valley can communicate directly with millions of Filipino Americans who reside in the U.S. on trade issues that can benefit both countries using the NetSuite technology platform.
James, is sent to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be part of it. Thank you very much. I am, sir. Very
Mr.
proud.
James Lando is the VP Worldwide Support and General Manager in NetSuite Philippines. Mr. David Gilhuff is the Philanthropy Program Manager based here in Silicon Valley. Also with them are their team members from Toronto, from Manila, and from the United States. We will not call their names, but please raise your hands so you
Thank
will
you
be
again, sir.
acknowledged.
Thank you again.
So this is the NetSuite team. Thank you very much for your help. May I call on all the youth volunteers to come forward, please. They have been very helpful in revamping our website, our viral website, for their leadership in invigorating the grassroots campaign of the Save Our Industries Act. Their support increased awareness and significant understanding of the benefits for the Filipino-American community. Mr. Al Perez, please approach the ambassador.
Thank you so much. Genevieve.
Ms. Genevieve Japanda. Mr. Levin Z. And Ms. Grace Esteban. Mr. Ambassador, there's a request for a couple of questions. There are 4 tables around the room with computers. Please, we encourage you to sign up for the SaveOurIndustriesAct.org. And those who do not have email addresses, there is another table where you can write your name and your contact details. We would really appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, could you please identify yourself and your institution?
I'm Cynthia Ruling from the Contra Costa Office of Education.
Cynthia?
Yes.
From the Contra Costa
Contra Costa County Office of
County
Education.
Office. All right.
Yes. Sir. Sir, is this, with regards to the SAVE Act, is there a move to try to get a similar, trade agreement with the state, with the individual states, like maybe California, wherein it might be easier to get a similar SAVE Act trade agreement with the state of California than with a federal government, and using that.
Well, that would be a problem because see, the textile sector, many of these are in, let's say, in the Midwest, and they're the ones who should benefit in terms of importation of fabrics or exportation of fabrics to the Philippines, and the export of Philippine apparel. It might be to some other state. It may not be in Mississippi, even though the fabric is from. So it's got to be the entire U.S. And they will probably not agree to a trade agreement with just one state, because the other states will also object. So while it might be easier, I think they normally don't do that. Even now, because there are free trade agreements that are being worked on, like the U.S., South Korea, the Colombia trade agreement has not yet been implemented. So it's not easy, and in fact, we were told that it's going to be a tough challenge for us to get the SAVE Act through. And this is why I've been appealing for support from our Filipino-American community, because the congressmen and the senators will of course listen if there are letters sent to them and tell them that this is a win-win type of legislation. But because there are other free trade agreements that were signed earlier, we know that this is going to be a challenge. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Ambassador,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you very much for emphasizing
It's on.
it's on,
Pwede ho. Sige ho.
for emphasizing the right of the Filipino Americans to vote,
Yes.
and that is one of the problems that we have encountered for many, many years. We need to empower the Filipino Americans, but right now we have the numbers, but we don't have the votes.
Exactly.
And how can we be recognized? And I congratulate you for this strong endorsement to all the Filipino Americans to exercise that right.
Thank you, ho. We have almost about 3.7 million Filipinos and Filipino Americans in the U.S. So you can imagine what a potent force we could be if the Filipino Americans in fact exercise the right to vote. I learned about that only in my few weeks here in the U.S., and this is why I appeal to all of you. Each one of you will have to make that commitment that you will register and vote. More importantly, the casting of the vote, because really the Filipino-American community can be even more influential in terms of supporting bills that will benefit, of course, not just the Philippines, but also the Filipino. One particular issue that is being brought up is Medicare portability, and I have said that I am in support of this proposal to extend Medicare portability even for people who might retire in the Philippines or those who seek treatment in the Philippines. But you know, that's going to be a tough, again, it's a tough challenge because there will be opposition from the US doctors. I think President Obama himself made a statement that they would not like people to go to other countries to seek cheaper. But it will be good for the US government because it will result in tremendous savings if treatment can be done under quality, of course, quality medical treatment, because there are hospitals in the Philippines that have that are internationally accredited. So that's another bill. But I've said that we will tackle that later on. Right now, our priority is the SAFE Act, but as I said, for us to be able to be heard by the U.S. Congress, we have to exercise. Our Filipino Americans should exercise the right to vote.
Program of the Philippine government towards keeping people like us who live abroad better informed about what's happening in the Philippines. Because right now, the only sources of information are the newspapers and television. They're not exactly very accurate.
Well, we are, in fact, our posts are using the website. We have websites. A number of our posts, particularly San Francisco, Washington, Chicago, in fact, have Facebook accounts. That's maybe something that the younger Filipino Americans will probably make use of. But we are, in fact, trying to expand our I guess our communications vehicles in order to keep our people informed what's going on in the Philippines. That's why the embassy and the consulate generals are being asked to come out with more information on the website to make it easier for our kababayans to, of course, obtain information. Of course, you have to understand that the government, the Philippines also had limited resources, and so we have to work within the budgets that have been established by the government. But email is the cheapest way of communicating, and so I have asked our consulate generals to, in fact, make sure that the websites are updated, that we provide useful information that can be of interest to you and to our other kababayans.
Hi, Ambassador.
Okay. Yes.
Ambassador, my name is Lourdes Santos Sansingo of the Veterans Equity Center. I just want to find out if the Philippine government has allocated budget for our Filipino veterans, and what is the current policy you have on them. Thank you.
Well, I am aware that there is, of course, a budget that for the veterans, for the Filipino veterans. Now, in terms of policy, I don't know what you mean by policy, but certainly the Philippine government is doing everything to support the Filipino veterans. For example, in the case of these Filipino veterans who are entitled to benefits here, my understanding is that for them to be given the payments by the U.S. Congress here, under the bill that was approved last year, they have to be in two lists, okay? Two lists of that in effect evidences their having been veterans. We've asked the U.S. We've sent a letter to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs if they could consider that one would suffice if they appear in the list of one and not necessarily in both, that they would still be eligible to get the benefit. That is, we've submitted that. That has, but we don't know whether that would be accepted, because right now you have to be in both lists. And some of our veterans, unfortunately, are in one list, but they're not in the other list of the U.S. government. So they are not compliant. So we are supporting. Our policy, in effect, is to support our veterans as much as we can. But on the other hand, we must also recognize that the US has its own laws, they have their own rules, and we have to abide by them. But if they are willing to consider accepting this proposal, then it would maybe benefit another 4,000 veterans who have not gotten their benefits because they appear only in one list. So we've talked to some congressmen and they are willing to support our proposal. All right, I think we have maybe one or two questions.
Yes, one last question.
Okay.
What's the official position of the Philippine government on Libya? You know, Osama bin Laden.
Well, of course, we are happy that I think justice has been served in the case of Osama bin Laden. Now, in the case of Libya, Secretary De Rosario came out with a statement saying that we cannot take a position on Libya because we have 26,000 Filipinos. About close to 13,000 workers have been repatriated, but many of our nurses decided to stay there. And we cannot, of course, come out with any public statement because we want to ensure the safety of our Filipino nurses. Many of them are sacrificing even their lives by remaining there because they want to serve, they want to continue to serve. So that's why Secretary De Rosario made that statement. But of course, as I said, we are happy that justice has been served. Okay, I think maybe one more question. Yes.
My name is Maribel Bioko. I'm from Fresno, California, which is a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. South. I don't have a question. I'm here to commend the Philippine Consulate General here in San Francisco because they make it a point to reach out to the Filipino communities in the Central Valley, and I would like to commend them because you're the new ambassador to the United States. I would like you to know that they have done a good job.
Thank you. I am aware of it, and I congratulate Consul General Pinor and his team in the Consulate General. I have said that to him. And thank you for your recognition because I know our people try very hard. And I must say that I am very fortunate to have very competent, very professional foreign service personnel, not only in San Francisco, but in all the other consulates as well as in Washington, D.C. I think the DFA makes sure that they send the best people to to this very important post in the U.S. Thank you. So one more. Yes.
I'm a friend of Erwin Jose.
Yes, my cousin.
I think right now the economic situation in this country is we're in a recession, so a lot of people lost jobs, and I think it will be nice if people who have lost jobs here can find ways and means to find the information of businessmen in the Philippines or business that are interested in exporting their products, so they may be able to have communications. And
again, it might be better to do this through our trade attaches. We have, for example, in San Francisco, we have trade attaches who can provide. We have a very competent trade attache in the personnel, Joe Pin Romero, and I'm sure they can provide you with a lot of information. But in the other consulates, we also have trade, not all have trade attaches. They can provide information that will be useful to those who are interested. Okay? I think with that, all right, thank you.
We'd like to recognize one of, he came a bit late, but because of the traffic, Mr. Juan Juan. And may I kindly also recognize Ms. Cuisia Ocampo, Commissioner of San Mateo County for Filam. Honorable Fel Anthony Amistad, Commissioner of the San Mateo County Commission on Disabilities. the Honorable Marico Enriquez, Commissioner of Redwood of San Mateo County, Department of Health. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, again, our thanks to all of you for gracing and honoring us with your presence this evening. We wish and we hope that you can meet with the ambassador. We have about 30 more minutes. Thank you very much, and pleasant evening to you all. Thank you.
Sorry, I was late. My wife. Yeah, hi.